So guys, Stand on Sports Central, we'll be going over an NFL playoff game preview over the wild card round matchup between the Seattle Seahawks and the Philadelphia Eagles. This should be a really close matchup here. Both these teams are coming into this game with equal amounts of momentum. This should be an interesting one. Previous game for both these teams, Seattle lost to San Francisco in a tough game, 21-26. And that was a huge game, probably one of the biggest games of the regular season, primarily because if the Seahawks would win that game, they'd be up to the 3 seed. And then at the 49ers, of course, they had higher risks. It was either the 1 or the 5 seed for them. Then the Philly Eagles beat the New York Giants 34-17, so they had a pretty comfortable win there. Some key stats from these games. For Seahawks, they had Russell Wilson, of course, 25 for 42, 33 yards, and 2 touchdowns. For the Eagles, Carson Wentz, who's been playing pretty great lately, 23 for 42, 89 yards, and 1 touchdown along with that. This game's going to be on Sunday, January 5th, 4:40 p.m. Eastern in Philly. Spread currently says Seahawks by 1.5. ESPN FPI disagrees, saying the Eagles 60%. And Vegas is saying a close, low-scoring one, 17-9, with Seattle winning it. And honestly, all three of these seem very accurate in my opinion. This should be this is like a coin toss kind of game for me. Stat comparison, well, this is your previous 5 games. Seattle Seahawks, they lost to the Niners, of course, by 5 last week. They lost to the Cardinals by 14. I don't know how they lost to the Cardinals like that. That was a terrible loss. But then again, I mean, Arizona's played really well in big games. They also beat a couple of big-name teams. They beat the Panthers by 6. They lost the Rams by 16. So that was another tough loss there that they could have. I mean, if they could have won that game, that would have been huge. But then they beat the Vikings by a touchdown, so that was a pretty good game. But for the Eagles, they've won 4 in a row. They beat the Giants by 2 touchdowns. They also beat the Cowboys decently. They beat the Redskins by 10. They beat the Giants then again in overtime. That was a close game there. Then they lost to the Dolphins on December 1st. And when they lost the Dolphins there, and the Dolphins were as bad as they were at that point, I'm sure many people, most everyone probably thought that the Cowboys would be the ones going to the playoffs. And it turns out things are much different at this point. The Eagles, winning their last 4 games, are now roaring into the playoffs. And honestly, this is a really, really tough game to predict, especially since both teams seem to be about equally skilled at this point. Key stats, both teams are very banged up, no doubt about that. I mean, the Seahawks have got, of course, Carson out. They're having to sign Marshawn Lynch. Lynch is going to have to play well for the Eagles. I mean, there are lots of injuries on both sides. So really, I think this is going to be a pretty much meaningless game. I don't see any of these two teams, or I don't see either of these two teams going on to the Super Bowl or even winning it. Honestly, I mean, both teams are too banged up at this point. It's really going to be tough. But Eagles do have more momentum. Eagles they're really tough to beat at home. No doubt about that. They've got a really good home field advantage. Seahawks have played better all season though, and the Eagles do have tougher injuries too. You got to consider. I mean, they've got a couple wide receivers out. It's gonna be tough for this Eagles team. How would each team win? I'd have to say if the Seattle Seahawks can come out early with a good lead, and if they can stay on top of the Eagles, that's how they should win this one, and I expect that to happen. I think the Eagles get out early, and the halftime score is going to be 14-10. Seahawks lead by 4. But in the final, it's going to be more of a moderate to a low-scoring game. Seahawks win it by 4 in the end, 24-20. But let me know your thoughts on this game in the comments below. Do you think the Eagles can get the win? Let me know your score predictions as well. I mean, honestly, this game could go either way. This is probably the toughest one to predict of the weekend. I mean, both these teams have many highs and lows to them at this point in the season. But yeah, once again, I would not be stunned a single bit to see the Eagles get the win here in this one. But once again, thanks all for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for more ASC Bowl previews, and I will see you all later.